Good afternoon, everybody. I guess if you're on the East Coast or in the Midwest, it's the afternoon, but perhaps it's the morning for you. My name is Jennifer Fee, and I'm one of the presenters for today's webinar introducing the BirdSleuth Explorer's Guidebook. We're hosting this webinar via a platform called Zoom, and Zoom has a chat window, and you might see at the top of your screen a chat box. Go ahead and pop that out. If you see it, just click on it. And make sure you set to send to all panelists and attendees, and that way everybody can see you. Or probably you'll send to everyone. Send to everyone. And go ahead and test it. Oh, good. Thank you, Lee, for testing the chat window. Great. All right, well, in honor of everyone's time, we only wanted to take about 20 minutes or so for this webinar today. We'll move pretty quickly and give you a brief introduction. I really appreciate everybody's participation. And we'll also be archiving this webinar as well. Everyone, the sound is okay for you? Go ahead and let me know in the chat window. Fantastic. All right, well, as I said, my name is Jennifer Fee, and I work here at the TheCornellLab of Ornithology. It's a beautiful day today in Ithaca, New York. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the lab, but we are a mission-driven organization, and our mission is to interpret and conserve the Earth's biological diversity in 3 ways: research, education, and citizen science focused on birds. And I work in the education program. And the education program's curriculum is called BirdSleuth K-12, and we largely do outreach through resource development and professional development for educators of all kinds. And 3 of our themes that we really want to try to accomplish with the BirdSleuth K-12 program is to connect kids to nature, to engage them in citizen science projects, and to help them do inquiry investigations. And the resource that we're sharing with you today, I think you'll find helps do all 3 of those. And I'm joined today by Kelly Schaefer, who's running tech for me, and she's going to be closely monitoring the chat window. So if you have any questions or comments or concerns, don't hesitate to let us know via that chat window. And I'll let Kelly take a moment to introduce herself and also introduce our other panelists today.
Hi everyone, I'm Kelly Schaefer. I'm an education specialist with the BirdSleuth K-12 program. I get to work a lot with our out-of-school time audience. And joining us today from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service are Joanna Webb and Mike Carlo, who work in the Division of Visitor Services and Communications for the National Wildlife Refuge system. Both are located in the Fish and Wildlife Service headquarters office in Virginia, where Joanna is the National Friends and Partnership Coordinator, and Mike is a Visitor Services Specialist.
Welcome, Joanne and Mike, and we will go ahead and unmute you and let you say a few words about the relationship that we've developed between the refuge system and Cornell Lab.
Okay, thanks guys. Yeah, so Joanna's sitting here with me, and I'll just say a few words about why we're doing this. And first of all, I know this is terrible timing for a lot of folks. The late in the week, right before the 4th of July, is historically terrible for getting folks to participate in much. So those of you that can join live, that's terrific. And we really want to get this on video so that we can then share it a little bit more widely with the rest of the refuge system so they could view it at their leisure. But thanks for you that joined live. I'll start by giving just a little background about the Guidebook partnership. I don't want to make this boring or anything, but the refuge system collaborated with the Lab of Ornithology on this edition. It's a special edition of their BirdSleuth Explorer's Guidebook. It really was designed to support something called the Every Kid in the Park program. You might be familiar with it, but if you're not, it's a federal public lands initiative, this Every Kid in the Park effort to encourage more kids to visit national forests, parks, national wildlife refuges, and other public lands. And the main part of the program, the exciting part, is that really what it does is it gives all 4th grade students in the United States the ability to obtain a pass that provides free access for them and their families to any of the federal public lands that charge an entrance fee. It's valid from, I think it goes from September 1st to the end of August every year, so they can use it with their families as many times as they want, while they're in that 4th grade time period. The program that's finishing its 2nd year this summer, it will be the 2nd year, and the plan is to go forward with one in the next year as well. I don't know that's been finalized, but that's the plan. And the guidebook that we worked on with the lab, it's definitely appropriate for 4th graders, and that's what we kind of had in mind. We thought it was a really good fit, and we changed it a little bit to make it more relevant to refuge audiences. But the activities in the guide are fun for families and children of really many different ages to do together during a refuge visit. There are 2 primary reasons we think the Explorer's Guidebook might be of interest to Friends Group. The first is in support of refuge education programs. And I think everyone on the call probably knows that environmental education, or EE as we like to say and shorten it up, it's important to the refuge system, and it's also important to most of our Friends Groups. And you'll hear more about the education side of things in just a couple of minutes from Jennifer about when she goes through the guidebook. And so depending on how an individual Friends Group supports a refuge education program, Friends Groups might consider purchasing guidebooks for students and educators to use when visiting a refuge on a field trip, for instance. Teachers, refuge staff, or Friends leaders might lead the students in some of the activities on a guided walk or maybe on a tram tour or something like that. But really, the other major connection that we thought about between the guidebook and Friends is as a possible sales item. For Friends Group that operate gift shops and kiosks, it seems to be a good fit for the educational objectives that many groups have for the products they sell to the public. The TheCornellLab of Ornithology, like I said, they invested a lot of time in the design of the guidebook, and their goal was to create a tool that has a sound basis in education standards. So that does a great job of creating the next generation of wildlife conservation stewards. But aside from the educational value, I think it's a terrific example of a simple standalone activity book. It can give visitors something to do when they don't arrive with a specific activity in mind, which happens, on a regular basis. They wind up there somehow, whether it's word of mouth or maybe they saw a sign driving on the highway and they said, let's go check it out. And, they don't have a specific activity in mind like a lot of us do, like maybe fishing or we're going to go birding. They just go and they show up. So, think about your average family group with young children, visiting your refuge. To me, that photo on the right on your screen of 2 grandparents with their grandson looking at the entrance kiosk after they park their car, that's a kind of a typical scenario. Okay, we're here, so now what? They're trying to figure out what to do that will be enjoyable, certainly for, say, the youngster, but also for them as well. They're trying to figure out, okay, do I take a car trip? Do I walk? If I walk, what will I see? So they don't know what to do. Maybe it's their first time visiting. They've come on a slow summer Saturday afternoon, and their grandson probably would rather be at home doing anything else but this. Playing video games or watching YouTube videos on his phone. Maybe there's just a single volunteer or Friends member working in the visitor center, and there's no guided walks or tours or presentations scheduled. So they want to know what they can do to entertain their 8-year-old grandchild. The volunteers knows a lot, but they also know that a warm, sunny afternoon is a lousy time to see wildlife. Much of the animal activity in hot summer days is around dawn or dusk, and they've come in the middle of the day, or maybe even during nighttime hours. But you don't want to tell them that they've come at the absolute worst time and make them feel bad or that they've wasted their time here. What you want to do is let them have a great experience at the time they chose to visit. This might be our only opportunity to really make that favorable first impression too. So I think this Explorer's Guidebook is really a great resource and maybe a possible solution for that issue that happens all the time of, well, a family's here, how can we help them to have a satisfactory experience? So it's kind of similar, you'll see in a minute, I think, to maybe a junior ranger program if your refuge has an active junior ranger program. Definitely similarities in the objectives and content. But the Explorer's Guidebook is focused primarily on birds and is appropriate you know, at most refuges, just as it is, without having to use language illustrations and you know, examples that are specific to any given refuge. And luckily, birds are relatively easy to see and hear compared to most other kinds of wildlife. There's even a few activities, I think, in the book that, or in the guidebook, that you don't even need to see a single animal or hear a single animal, and you can still participate and have an active experience. So I'll turn it over back to Jen, and you can run through the guidebook, and you'll probably see a lot of opportunities for how folks can really have an active, enjoyable time as they visit a refuge. I'm all done, Jen. I'll turn it right over to you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Sure.
I was muted at that moment. I was just going to say, I'm going to leave you unmuted so that you can pitch in your expertise at any time. Unless there's feedback issues, then we'll mute you. But you are unmuted, so feel free to pop in at any time. All right. As Mike said, we developed this for the Every Kid in a Park program. Kind of our ideal audience in our mind was a fourth grader about 10 years old. One of the things we noticed with Every Kid in the Park, because boy, it's a great program, but there wasn't much content beyond these free passes for fourth graders. And so Federal Lands and their partners like the Cornell Lab jumped on board to help create resources that might help scaffold the fourth grade Every Kid in a Park program. And as Mike was describing, the result of that, at least from the lab side, is this BirdSleuth Explorers Guidebook. And it's available also in Spanish, if you have Spanish audiences. So I guess one thing that I like to do before I start is like, why is this important? Well, even brief interactions with nature can help kids boost their concentration, restore their energy, increase their short-term memory stores. There's a huge obesity epidemic right now, even among young kids. So it's really important for us, from the context of getting kids outside and kind of offering fun, engaging activities that are more fun than cell phones, as Mike said. I've got a kindergartner right now. Actually, she's first grade. She's just moved up. She's a first grader now. And you know, she loves to play on the cell phone, but if I give her something fun to do outside, we all enjoy it. So hopefully this is a resource that will help you engage these students, whether in school programs or just visitors to your refuge. And some of our goals when we were developing the guidebook was to get kids outside, exploring, to hopefully spark some of their curiosity and encourage questions. One of the pages in the books is just for them to record their questions on, to help them build their observation skills, their understandings about habitat, and also to develop basic bird ID skills. So I'm going to run through some of the activities in the guidebook, and you can see how some of these goals might be met. One of the activities that I really love doing, even as an adult, is the sound map activity, which we call Wake Up Your Ears. This is the first activity. And basically, you just quiet for a little while and listen to the sounds around you. And depending on the refuge that you're in, you're going to hear maybe some man-made noises, some natural noises, and just to draw a map of it. So those grandparents and parents, I think, would enjoy doing this activity as well as the kids in the group as well. It's surprising when you're just sit and be quiet for 5 or 10 minutes how much sound you actually notice in the environment. You can start hearing the grass rustle and crickets chirping and things that otherwise you just pass right by. And that's an activity that, as Mike was saying, is good even in the heat of the day. In the middle of the afternoon, you're still going to hear some sounds, whether it's wind or planes going over, or geese going over, birds chirping, as you can see in the sound map that we have there as a sample. We also want to connect kids to the habitat. So as Mike said, this isn't specific to any particular habitat or any particular refuge, but encourages kids to look for food, water, cover, and space that animals might use in the refuge. And then, of course, everybody loves a scavenger hunt, so there's a scavenger hunt of the habitat as well. Again, just to provide that focus as you're walking along the trail or hunting around the visitor center, that maybe you can keep your eye out for some of these things and just boost those observation skills in kids. Moving beyond the habitat, then we start zooming in on birds. And again, the kids aren't looking for a particular bird, because if we added particular birds on here, then you might need a wetland or you might need an urban area. But we encourage them to see a variety of birds, like two birds together, or a bird carrying something, or some evidence of birds. So even if, again, there are not a lot of birds around, it's a fun challenge for them to look for birds and the signs of birds. And there it is, both in English and Spanish. We move on from just opening your eyes and ears to birds into looking for actual identification clues. Does anybody know about our Merlin Bird ID app? It's a fantastic app. If you've used it and have any feedback, you're welcome to add that into the chat window. But basically, Merlin knows via your smartphone where you're at and the date, and then basically through a few simple questions like the size of the bird and the colors you see and what the bird is doing, it's going to give you some recommendations. Now, we couldn't assume, for example, that Merlin worked in all the refuges or that people were going to bring their smartphones, but we kind of put Merlin into a paper format, encourage the kids to sketch the birds, and then of course put a link to Merlin so that they can use that resource when they're back at home and maybe reflect on their visit to the refuge. There's a glimpse of Merlin, very mimicked within the pages of the Explorer's Guidebook. Size, color, and what it was doing. And then it's going to give you a prediction for what birds you see. This is a great resource to point visitors to if they're curious about birds or if you're interested in doing birding program at your refuge. And then toward the end, we finally get into counting birds. So we ask kids to, especially if they have access to something like Merlin, or maybe they've got a field guide, which a lot of people will bring to the refuge, what species do they see and how many do they see? And of course, on this page for activity 7, we use the term citizen scientist. Is everybody familiar with that term, citizen scientist? Basically, citizen science are projects in which volunteers partner with scientists to answer real-world questions. And the lab is really well known for our citizen science projects like eBird. And so by giving kids toward the end of the guidebook the opportunity to try to identify species and call out to go become a citizen scientist, we're further extending the learning opportunities, maybe giving them something exciting to do at the refuge that they might want to do again and again, because of course birds change throughout the year. Just a few words about eBird. If you're not familiar with it, we've got data from every country on the planet, 99% of all species on the planet. It's over 200 million checklists. Kelly, what's the last count? Have you got an update?
400 million.
No way.
400 million observations.
This is way out. This is checklists.
That's checklists. I'm not sure what the checklist number is, but individual observations is 400 million.
This might look to you like a map of the night sky, but it's actually a map of where observations have been contributed. So you can look on the map where your refuge is located. I bet that there are eBird sightings reported from your refuge, because often refuges are hotspots. So we of course want to involve kids in that process because it's super motivating for them to contribute their data. And of course, we provide links to eBird. eBird has a mobile app, eBird Mobile. Super simple to use the stuff that you've recorded in your guidebook and to submit that data from the refuge into the eBird database. And then it will show up on your life list, and you'll be reminded of the time you visited the refuge and had all that fun. So it feels really important to me as an educator to connect kids to the outdoors, and what better tool to use than birds, because they are everywhere year-round. So we hope that the Explorer's Guidebook will help you do that. I really like the guidebook because it's written on a pretty stiff paper. It's designed so that you don't need a clipboard, for example, to use it. You can use the stability of the guide to just go out with a pencil and use it without any other equipment. And we try to keep the price as low as possible, basically just to cover our print costs on the high quality paper. And it's also available as a free download. So you can purchase them or download them as well. And of course, there's a link to the page that describes all this. Maybe Kelly could put it in the chat window. BirdSleuth.org/NWRS.
Hey, Jen.
Yes.
This is Mike. I hate to be the person that points out a typo or anything, but it's 25 copies for $25 or 100 copies.
Oh, geez.
For 90, right?
Yeah, if you send us
$90.
$25, we'll send you $100. No.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how I can make money on that deal, but
you send us, no, it's actually you send us 100, we'll send you 90. That's right. It's 100 copies for $90. Thank you. I don't know how I missed that. Yeah, so $1 a copy at 25, but if you order 100, it's only $90. And I welcome your questions or reflections. I'm sure Mike would be happy to give his insight as well to how this might be useful for refuges, friends groups, educators that visit your site, for example. And you can just add your comments in the chat window or your questions in the chat window. And of course, if you think of questions later, if you're watching this as an archived version and you want to reach out to us, of course, we welcome that. Again, my name is Jennifer Fee. You can reach me at jms327@cornell.edu. And of course, BirdSleuth, like everybody else, has a Twitter and a Facebook page. We'd love to have you follow us. And you can find all sorts of materials, including videos and how to lead nature walks and the benefits of getting kids outside for nature and citizen science on our website. And I appreciate yes, go ahead.
Oh, Jen, I was just going to say, it's sort of repeating what I said earlier, maybe a little bit, but the folks on the phone, either the friends and any refuge staff or who watch this in the future, when environmental education and interpretation, those are two of the priority recreational activities that we should facilitate on National Wildlife Refuges. And those two are different than the other ones that we have, like wildlife observation and hunting and fishing and wildlife photography. And they're interesting when you think about it. Those two are more from the refuges standpoint, where we're going to give something to you. We're going to teach you something, whether it's formally through a school group or a curriculum-based field trip, or we're going to do it sort of more non-formally through an interpretive program or through interpretive signs on a trail or something like that. But this kind of takes that concept, and what I really like about this and junior ranger programs as well, it puts the visitor in the role of being the actor, the action part of it. So I think this really brings our interpretation and environmental education activities and brings it full circle, so that our visitor is actually doing something and we're not doing something to or for the visitor. So I think this really, it meets our purposes for those two activities, either with an organized school field trip to support the refugee program, or as just a simple family visit and a casual visit. And you know, they just want to go and have a good time. And when they leave, when they get home and they tell folks, hey, what did you do this weekend? Oh, we went to this XYZ National Wildlife Refuge. And you know, the idea is for it to be a little bit memorable, for them to have fun and enjoyable and want to return. And I think this gives them that mechanism for folks that really don't know what to do when they get there. It allows them to be active participants, to have fun while they're learning. You know, we don't want to be sneaky, but they're learning while they're doing something active. They're exploring things and thinking of concepts they might normally do. So I really like this tool, or this guidebook as a tool for that purpose. I think it really fits well with the refuge system visitor services program.
I appreciate what you're saying. I like the word scaffolding. So it provides the scaffolding for their visit to help them do the things that they probably want to do, but maybe they don't know that they want to do.
Yeah, I haven't really thought about scaffolding any other way except for a scaffold. So
Yeah.
I learned something. Thank you.
We probably overuse that term in BirdSleuth.
Buzzword.
Well, I appreciate everybody's time, and if you're listening to this on archive again, know that the BirdSleuth team is always here to help in any way that we can, so don't hesitate to reach out to us. All right, if nobody has any questions, we promised Mike that we would be done in under half an hour, and we win the prize. We're done with the content part. But do reach out to us and let us know how we can support you in the future. And I hope you'll find this a useful resource at your refuge. We sure enjoyed making it in collaboration with Mike and his colleagues. It's been a great collaboration.
Well done. Thanks, Jen and Kelly. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike
Our
and
pleasure.
Joanna. We appreciate it. And thanks to everybody who logged in. We'll hopefully see you soon.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.